Professor Robert Henry. Today, we're going to talk a little bit, we'll introduce ourselves, go over the syllabus, we don't have to go over that, you can read it. We'll introduce you to philosophy and go over some of the earliest debates in philosophy. Introducing yourself, obviously, will go in Brightspace, so just go ahead and introduce yourselves there. What is philosophy and pre-Socratic philosophy? Philosophy comes from the Greek word philos, which means love, something like Greek, and also the Greek word sophia, which is wisdom. Literally means the combinations to the love of wisdom. Unlike mythology, Homer or Hesiod stories of gods explaining the world through personal whims, philosophy seeks a rational, natural explanation using reason and observation. So obviously the Homer or the Odyssey movies were popular, but how it was in the ancient times, how people understood the world was through narrative. It was through stories. It was through the divine, through the gods creating things. The reason why these mountains are here is because these gods were fighting or something like that, or the reason why this volcano is erupting because a god is upset. So that was the traditional way of understanding the world, or the ancient way. But in the philosophical manner, philosophy sought rational and natural explanations. And they would observe things. And they would use natural things that they would see every day. Not imagining the gods, but looking at what they saw and looking at how things on a smaller scale causes other things, and pretty much inferring from those natural observations or observations of nature how everything came to be. So philosophy kind of starts there. Core questions of philosophy was the nature of reality, how do we know what we know, and what is it in life? So some of the big questions of philosophy is what's the nature of reality? What is reality? What's it made of? Is it material? Is it ideas? Is it just something one said? How do we know what we know? That's called epistemology. So the former is kind of metaphysics and ontology. The second one's epistemology. How do we know anything? And what is the good life? This is where we get to ethics. And ethics also plays a part in philosophy. Some core questions in philosophy. What is metaphysics, the study of ultimate reality, epistemology, ethics, and logic, which is valid reasoning. So you don't just say you know something because you have an intuition or some sort of logical epiphany, but rather you have to demonstrate it. You demonstrate it with certain rules and certain structures in logic. And then you need aesthetics, which is the study of beauty and art. So beauty and art, why is something beautiful? What is beauty? What makes something beautiful? Those are the questions of aesthetics. So the pre-Socratic philosophy marks the beginning of Western philosophy. Shift from mythic to theoretic consciousness, explaining the world through personal principles rather than the gods. And as I was explaining before, trying to understand the world rather than through a narrative and story, but through how the world works in personal causes. This particular weather pattern causes this rock rolling down the hill causes more rocks to build up and build up. That's how we have a mountain. It's basically things you observe in nature, causes you observe in nature, which are the reason why things are the way they are. So philosophy different from mythology or religion. So we won't really go over that, but you can look at these questions and kind of think about them. And if you want, you can even address them in some of our later discussion board questions about the nature of life. So why do you think humans ask philosophical questions? Or they just abstract? Which branch of philosophy interests you the most? Is it metaphysics, the nature of reality? Is it epistemology, how you know anything? Is it ethics, the right thing to do, the right and wrong thing to do? Is it logic? How do we come to true propositions? How can I know that the propositions I'm making are true? Aesthetics. What is beauty? What is the right order of things? Almost like you see this in like Eastern ideas like feng shui. How are things coordinated in such a way to bring about beauty and the appropriate way things are? So first we have the Milesians. So this is an early natural natural philosophy from Meletus. So Milesians were called this in philosophy because the first major group of thinkers, including Thales, Anaximander, and Anaximenes, originated from the ancient group of Miletus in Ionia, which is in modern-day Turkey. If you look at a map, you see Turkey. That was actually, in ancient times, that was populated by Greek-speaking, Hellenistic people. So that was the culture, was Greek or Hellenistic. They're considered the founders of Western philosophy and science, known for moving from the theological or to rational explanation. So they were kind of the first to really question a lot of the poets and question these things, and they wanted to come up with rational explanations. The Milesians sought the arche, the primary substance or principle underlying all things, a single permanent reality behind constant change. So, and what that basically means is they believed that there were four essences that made up it: earth, air, fire, and water. So everything was an admixture of these four primary elements. So they were trying to see which one of these elements, which one of these substances is the cause of all the other substances. So we have Thales. Everything is ultimately water. Water can take solid, liquid, or vapor forms. It's essential for life. Magnets have souls because they move. This is kind of early animism. And first predict an eclipse rationally. So he was the first one to predict that eclipses occur not because the gods are angry, but because there are these natural processes in nature that can be observed and can be tracked and can be measured, rather than can be attained to attributed to some sort of god. So his view was that everything comes from water. And he's considered probably the earliest known philosopher. So then you had Anaximander, and his was the arc, is the apera, the boundless, indefinite, an eternal, unlimited source from which opposites emerge and return, which introduced the idea of cosmic justice and balance. So Anaximander was saying that no, it's actually the contrast between these different substances. Right? And it was almost kind of conceptual. It was something you couldn't observe, but it was something that was working its way through these different substances, which are the apeiron or the boundless indefinite. So something immaterial, something that's beyond anything that you can see or that you can observe, but it is the foundation for all of these things that you can see. That was Anaximander. So Anaximenes found the arc, or the basis for all of reality, is air. It was the thinning of these fire, condensation between cloud, water, and earth. Quantitative change explains qualitative differences. So that was ultimately the quantitative change, I mean, the amount. If you put so much of this into this cup, and you put so much of this, that will explain why you have qualities, or different qualities, because of the quantitative changes. These thinkers moved toward natural, non-mythological explanations. And then you can always answer these questions if you'd like. Why might Thales choose water as the fundamental substance? Why did he? What was so compelling about water as a primary substance, which would convince him that this was the ultimate nature of reality? Or Anaximander, the apeiron, or that contrast between these things. Why is that so compelling? Or Anaximenes, why is it? So the Milesians' ideas show a shift from mythic to rational thinking. Right? Here we have the Pythagoreans. So the Pythagoreans were followers of Pythagoras. That can make sense, doesn't it? Pythagoras and his followers. Reality is fundamentally mathematical. Numbers and harmony govern the universe. So instead of it being a substance, it's number. It's these numbers, and actually that's a popular view even today, that numbers are the basis of reality. That by various equations, if these equations come together and they form, then out of them descend or emanate all of physical reality. So these numbers are primary. They're primary even before the Big Bang, point of singularity, are discovered mathematical theorems, Pythagorean theorem, believed in transmigration of souls. So they discovered the Pythagorean theorem, which is in geometry. And they believed in the transmigration of souls, reincarnation. They believed that our souls existed, but they existed in different instantiations and incarnations. When you die, you're going to come back as something else. They lived ascetically, which means that they were very funny about having too much access. They were very clear about not engaging in too much materiality, eating too much, and going out partying and all that other sort of thing. All things are numbers. Mathematical order explains cosmic harmony. Music of the spheres. We won't go into musical theory, but that has a lot to do with it. Everything is a sphere. Everything, the perfect shape is the sphere. We won't answer those. You can see that. Heraclitus and the problem of change. So Heraclitus was a philosopher, 535, 475 BC. And he felt that everything is in flux. You don't have this situation where there are actual substances that are static and always unchanging that are the foundation for change. Rather, he felt that change itself was the foundation for reality. He said you cannot step in the same river as everything is in flux. Logos, or reason or order, governs change. Fire as art, was a transformative. So what he found is that the change of all these physical things that we observe is founded upon change itself. So he found that the logos, or the reason, so the Greek word logos means reason or order. It's the way things are ordered, kind of like a puzzle has a certain order. He felt that that was founded upon the concept of change. And unity of opposites, so you have strife and harmony, are the same. War and peace. So he felt that these opposites were actually the same, two sides of the same coin. Kind of dualistic perspective. So, which do you agree with? My allegiance was Pythagoreans, or do you like Heraclitus' view? Do you like the idea that there's one of these four essences? Do you like the idea that reality is made up of number, or do you think that reality is ultimately just change? Those are really good questions. All right, let's move on to now we'll go on to the Eleatics, the pluralists, and the atomists. We'll talk about what these terms are. The Eleatics, that's in reference to where they're from. Parmenides and Zeno. I know they sound like really fancy names, but I know it looks like Parmenides, but it's the way it's pronounced in Greek is Parmenides. The Eleatics were a group of philosophers from around the 5th century BCE, and they were promoting the view that all reality is plenitude. What that means is basically everything is static. It's not changing. It's all full. It doesn't need anything. Everything that is there at all times. It's like the eternal now, you can call it that, whatever. But it's always there. And change is kind of an illusion, right? So everything's full, and thus being itself is unchanging. It's immutable. It's singular and eternal. So there's not many things. There's only one thing. And you guys think there's many things. It's an illusion, but there's only one thing. It doesn't change, right? It's immutable. It's not something you can form into something else. It is as it is. And it has eternal properties. And these eternal properties never change. They're always the same forever and ever and ever. Properties of being, one, monistic, ungenerated and indestructible, eternal and omnitemporal, immobile, homogeneous, complete. So basically all of these things are just the a complex way of just telling you that, look, reality is like a big blob of circle where nothing is outside of it and everything is in it, and it never changes. And any change you do see or you observe is an illusion. Or you're seeing it from a different perspective, but ultimately it is the same. You're moving around the bowl, or the ball that is all there is, and you're just seeing different aspects of it, but it's still the same. Those aspects are illusions in a sense.
So let's go to Parmenides. So first you have mythology, but what's much more important than mythology or myth or narratives, the gods did this, science did that, is natural observation, as we were talking about earlier. With the Milesians and with Pythagoreans, and all of them. They were basing it on natural observations. However, Parmenides went a step further and he says, okay, yeah, natural observations are better than myth, but something that's even better than that is reason, it's logic. It's not something you can observe, it's outside of observations, you think about it. So instead of looking with a telescope and looking around, you sit here like that, and you think. And that's what you do. You sit and you just think. You think. You don't look, you think. So nature presents to us a thing, something like a tree is a concept which is predicated to each and every tree. This is the problem of the one and the many. So, and you can read all this, and I'll just break this down really simple. The one and the many problem is a really popular problem in ancient philosophy. What that means is you have something like a tree, but you have many trees. So I'm calling that a tree. I'm looking at trees outside, you can't see it. I'm looking at that tree, I'm looking at that tree. There's something that unites them all. It's like this treeness. It's this universal substance called treeness that this tree and that tree participate in. Well, for Parmenides, the treeness, the fact that that is a tree and that is a tree, indicates that there's something universal about both of them, that not only do they share it, which is more about Plato, which we'll go about him next. We'll talk a little bit more about him later. But is that they don't just participate, that's what they are. There's one thing, there's not two trees, there's only treeness. And treeness is actually something much deeper than that. There's treeness is just an illusion. It's just one thing. It's one thing, and that one thing expresses itself in an illusory sort of expression of observation. That's why you can't look around, you have to think. You have to think things through. You can't just look, because looking is going to present us with this illusion that there are many things. Okay, so now we have Zeno, and Zeno is interesting because Zeno was a student of Parmenides. He believed the same things Parmenides did, but he came up with these really interesting paradoxes in order to demonstrate, or he felt that he could demonstrate that there's no change. There's no change, and there's no space, and that there's no time, and there's no distance. So one of his famous ones, and you can read each one of these, but I think the best explanation is kind of like me